I'm Dan, and this is 10,000 Hours of Indie, a podcast exploring new music and delving deeper into what goes on in the background of the independent music industry. I'm a musician and passionate music lover, and I wanted to delve deeper into new music in the independent scene around the world. I also saw this as a chance to help artists connect and share their stories, so if there's someone you hear and you want to find out more about, every podcast has links in the show description. Get involved, help this community grow, follow on the 10,000 Hours of Indie socials, you can find all the links in the show description. And also feel free to email me about anything music related, 10,000indie@gmail.com. I'm open to any ideas and love listening to your promos. Strawberry Alarm Clock formed in California 60 years ago, and their first single, Incense and Peppermints, reached number one on the US charts. During the late 60s, they toured with the Beach Boys and Buffalo Springfield and have played alongside many other well-known bands at various stages in their history. Various lineup changes and iterations of the band have occurred over the years, but despite a colourful history, 5 of the original members are just about to release their first album of all new material since 1969, Where's One, on August the 9th. It's really good, and I honestly had no idea of their history until I started writing these questions. So, George, Gene, and Howard, thanks for joining me on the podcast.
Hey, thank you, Daniel.
Glad to be here.
Acid rock, psychedelic pop rock, sunshine pop, they're just some of the genres you've been linked to. How would you describe what you do?
Those terms didn't really exist back in 1966, 67. So we didn't tag ourselves with them. And when we used to get write-ups, like we'd do a concert or whatever, and we would get a review, and they would say they were a combination of raga, classical, jazz, and rock. And that's how they summed it up in those days. Later, I guess somebody coined it, acid rock, but we never called ourselves acid rock.
Yeah.
And we were never on acid when we wrote the songs or recorded them or played live. Well, one time when we played live. But there was one show. And anyway, as a matter of fact, that show was the weirdest thing ever. And I never wanted to do that again. My bass was melting in my hand, one of those deals. So that was the end of that adventure, but that's kind of how it sums up.
Yeah, I try to describe to my friends, and especially my musician friends, what it's like playing in this band. I go, it's really pretty much, as far as the complexity, it's like being in a prog rock band. You know what I mean? There's all these interlines and just, it's challenging, to say the least. So, yeah.
So, it's almost 60 years since your debut album. Apart from your hair colour, or lack of hair colour in some cases, what's changed?
Not a lot. We actually write our songs the same way that we did then. Mostly the songwriters are all intact here. We've lost a couple of our original members, Ed King and Lee Freeman, both passed away years ago. Like Lee died in 2010 and Ed in 2018. But we actually, with this configuration of the band, we actually played a concert in 2007 with everybody on board. And it was a blast, So we were all friends. We all remained friends.
There's been a lot of changes to lineups, etc. over the years, but somehow the 5 of you are back with a new album. Who sowed the seed that the album sprung from?
All the way back to 2007, when we all got together again. I mean, we had been, like Howie and I had been, Howard is actually Howie the Love God, just so you know. So Howie and I had been touring around all over the country with Lee Freeman and sometimes Randy Seal and another friend of ours, Bruce Hubbard, on drums. But we, those tours kind of kept the fire burning, all the time.
Yeah.
And we always wrote songs in the same manner. Anyway, this new album, we were getting ourselves ready for the 2007 concert, which was actually Roger Ebert, the film critic. he asked us to play at his 9th annual Overlooked Film Festival. So that's when I gathered everybody to he wanted all the original members. So he had Lee and Ed, and it had all of us here. And we started rehearsing at Steve Bartek's house. He has a recording studio. So we were rehearsing, and then Steve said, I think maybe we should start recording these rehearsals to make sure that we sound like Strawberry Alarm Clock, because we were learning our old songs. And we were not changing keys. We were learning them in the original keys, but we were much older than 18 years old, which is when
Right.
we recorded those. And it was a lot of vocals, a lot of harmony singing and stuff.
Yeah.
So we had to rise to that occasion, and we started realizing that we started to kind of finish off these recordings. They weren't just like rehearsal tapes. We started finishing them, and which turned into an album that we released in 2012 called "Wake Up Where You Are." Literally, that's what it was too. And so that process of us recording ourselves to see what we sounded like was really, gratifying, because we were going, well, how do you like that? We sound like ourselves and we sound good. It's like,
Yeah.
because everybody had kept playing. So we didn't have to relearn anything as far as playing music, our instruments or anything. But that progressed on into, we started doing a few original new songs at that time. And then we kept rehearsing for different things along the way. Different things kept coming our way to do. Like Sky Saxon passed away, and his wife asked us to contribute a song to an album that was being produced by Billy Corgan of the Smashing Pumpkins. We chose to do Mr. Farmer, which Mark White sang. And it came out great. Mark is the one who sang Birdman of Alcatraz, the flip side of Incense and Peppermints, the single. He's got that kind of Sky Saxon thing about it. And he's the organ player too, so he does the same kind of a thing. Anyway, that, and then we did a little theme song for a movie called World Citizen, and it was a short film about being a world citizen. And then there was a band called the Fuzztones that asked us to do they did an album where they wanted original 60s artists performing their songs.
Yeah.
And the Fuzztones were pretty funny guys. And they had this song called Charlotte's Remains, and about the spider Charlotte. And so we did that. And Mark sang that one too, come to think of it. And between those new things and all the original old songs, we decided let's put them on an album together and release it.
Yeah.
So we mixed it and released it. And then we kept writing, but there was like a little interim where Steve got too busy with Danny Elfman, like he does sometimes.
Yeah.
Like today. Steve was actually the original lead guitar player for Oingo Boingo as well. But he played flute on our first album and wrote 4 of the songs with me on the first album. So we consider him an original member. He was too young to join the band. His mom wouldn't let him do it. He was 15. The rest of us were 18, but it was a huge difference. Anyway, he came back into the fold. He one day we were going to play at the Whiskey. It was like 16 years ago or something, and they called, and I told Steve, and he goes, I want to play. And I went, oh boy, he wants to come back into the fold here. And we put our show together for the Whiskey, and it was really good, real successful, sold it out. And our audience was like 18 years old to 35. And you could see a couple of sprinkles of people that looked like us in the audience, but there were only a few. It was like a young audience, and they knew all the lyrics. The people our age didn't know the lyrics. And so they were singing along with the songs. They were calling out songs, and we're going, wow, this is great. So we've played at the Whiskey now every year since then. And we have another one. I just booked one for February 20th, 2027. and it's going to be our 60th anniversary party.
Wow.
Yikes! And these kids, the band is too old to be their parents. The band is old enough to be their grandparents.
Yeah.
Anyway, there you have it. And so we kept that going strong. We were on it at that point. Now, once we had this momentum going, and we did a few other shows in between, and so we kept writing and rehearsing and coming up with new ideas, and it was just like we were kids, and until you walk by a mirror. But yeah, so it was really fun, and each of us, like Howie brings a song, and then we start all working on it. Mark brings a song, we work on it. I bring a song, everybody, Randy even. We all bring in stuff, and then some of it we all write at the same time together.
Yeah.
And some of these songs on the new album were done that way, like the songs that Randy, because Randy, he's the drummer. He's one of the drummers. Gene's the other one. And so, they're playing drums. He comes up with lyrics, and so and a melody. And so what we end up doing is Howie and I and Steve and Mark start putting music to what we think he's aiming at.
Yeah.
And we develop it. We start with something like a bass part could start it. And so that process is basically how we did it originally. Like Steve and I wrote the songs that we wrote together. We lived next door to each other in the 60s with our parents. And we wrote songs every day in his bedroom. We would just trade ideas back and forth. We would look up words in the dictionary and stuff. Like Rainy Day Mushroom Pillow, we didn't have any intention of that being about psychedelic mushrooms. It was about being lost in a rainforest and trying to find the right mushrooms to eat. And it said colors green, brown, and yellow, poison dreams, distorted dreams, mushroom dreams. It was like, don't eat this mushroom and you can eat this one. That's kind of what we were writing about.
That's a great story.
We left it. Left it kind of nebulous, and it got interpreted. People would say, "Oh, I know what you're talking about there." Go, "Oh, really? Tell us." We don't know. But anyway, so the new songs, and like now, I've written a couple of the new songs with my longtime songwriting partner, David Gluck, and he's a lyricist, but he's also a musician. But he's a lyricist. And so it's a lot of, he sends me a whole set of lyrics, and I look at the set of lyrics, and sometimes I just feel the music to it, or I'll pick up an instrument, a piano or a guitar or whatever, and start playing to it, and it just sort of finds itself in his lyrics. It's sort of effortless in a way to write like that. I enjoy it anyway, and then Howie tends to write selfishly. All by himself. All of his songs are personal things, and so we all partake in it, and it's a blast.
Even though, like my songs, we could use the term selfish. I know it's all in fun. Still, it's everybody is contributing to how that song comes out. It's not just you play this bass line, you do this, you do that. It's definitely a team effort, and that's pleasantly surprising to have people fill in the blanks, as it were.
That's a lot of fun, actually. Howie's songs are pretty much together, and so for me, it's a blast to put a bass part to it, because that's not the part that although sometimes he does write a bass part, but it's fun for me to craft into this, and bass parts are, to me, only really, really good if you're writing the song with the bass part. If you're part of the creative process of the song, it's not like you get to use your favorite bass lick, that you've learned. You have to come up with something that suits the song.
It's a custom fit.
Yeah. Anyway, and Gene's like that too. When Gene comes up with his drum parts, Gene was the drummer on Incense and Peppermints, and he was the drummer in the band before it was called Strawberry Alarm Clock. So was Randy was in it when it was still the Sixpence too, and Mark
Replacing
also.
me, yeah.
Yeah, but Gene, explain your input as far as the drum part on Incense and Peppermints.
Well, in those days, we were a band that was doing a lot of covers, especially British Invasion, and there was a lot of groups that I would listen to that I really enjoyed what they did, and they really made the song of of different songs, and so like with Get Off of My Cloud by the Rolling
Oh yeah.
Stones.
Yeah.
The beginning lick that I played was just the reverse of that
Oh,
of that lick.
see, that's why I asked. I never knew.
Because what Charlie Watts was playing was definitely a big part of the song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I said, well, what can I do? So I just flipped that lick around, and then I played that several times in the beginning, and also the Music Machine with a song called Talk Talk. He had a lot of hi-hat work in that song, and I was very much in love with that song and the drum parts and that, and so that's where I wanted to manifest that into Incense and Peppermints, and so that's how I did that.
Hey, Gene. Do you remember? Do you
Yeah.
mind telling that story? I don't know if you feel comfortable with it, but the hitchhiker story.
Oh,
This is pretty funny.
I could tell it really quick.
Yeah.
After I'd quit the band, I quit the band before the vocals were put on the Incense and Peppermints, and then Randy Seal replaced me. But anyway, I was driving down Highland in Hollywood in my car, and there was this girl hitchhiker, and so in this in the '60s, it wasn't a big deal. So I pulled over, picked her up, we're riding, and this Incense and Peppermints comes on listen on the radio. So I kind of turn up the volume on Incense and Peppermints, and she says, "I hate that song." She says, "The drummer stole those licks from the Music Machine. Talk Talk."
Oh, that's great.
I love that story.
And I looked over at her. I went, "Oh, okay." And I reached over and turned
Turn the volume
the
down,
knob
and
down.
that was
Yeah.
that was the end of it.
You don't know me, I don't know you. It's okay.
Well, you certainly get more honesty from people who don't know who you are, don't you?
Yes,
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
for sure.
absolutely. And she must have known them or something, because that was a direct acknowledgement of that she actually knew what was going on in the music
That's
business.
pretty knowledgeable. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to start the next question with I don't want to delve into the past of the band too much, but we've already started it, so I'll continue. You toured with the Beach Boys during arguably their most successful period. How were those dates, and what was sharing a stage with them like in '67?
So I have to take that one because of the three of us, I'm the only one that was on that tour.
Yeah.
The Beach Boys had come to a recording session of ours. At least Mike Love did. And he had a roster. And I happened to have been in the little waiting room, it had a red light saying on air because the band was in there recording something. And Ed King asked me to restring one of his guitars. So I was in the little waiting room restringing his guitar. And the door opens up and in walks Mike Love. And I'm like, what the? And he goes, "Hi, I'm Mike Love." And I said, "I know." I go, "Yeah, I know." And so he says, "Are you with the Strawberry Alarm Clock?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Oh, great. Well, I'll start with you since they're in there recording." And I said, "Sure. What?" And he goes, "We want you to go on tour with us. We really like your band. We think you guys are great. We love your harmonies. And we just really want you to be part of our show, our tour." And I said, "Wow." And he goes, "Here, let me show you the tour roster." It was Buffalo Springfield, Strawberry Alarm Clock, and the Beach Boys. And I thought, "Oh no, you're kidding. Buffalo Springfield was my favorite band." I'm sitting there alone and I'm thinking, "Oh, the band's got to hear this." But the red light was still on. And so he starts telling me all the dates. We're gonna start in Washington D.C. and do a whole East Coast thing. And he goes, and that's going to be called our fifth annual Thanksgiving tour. And then he said, but that's not all. He goes, then in '68, in April, we're going to do the Beach Boys Easter tour with the same lineup. And I was like, oh no. And there were a lot of shows on each roster of both those tours. And he says, you guys will be flying in our airplane. So I'm 18 years old, and this is like the head's gonna explode, but that didn't happen in those days. That's a term now. So eventually the light goes off, and I bring him into the studio, and everybody else is like, oh, whoa. Fast forward, so it does come about, and we had to meet them. We didn't fly out with them. We had to fly to Washington and then hook up with their tour. And then from there on, we were in their car, their limos, their bus, their airplane. They had a private plane. And so the first show that we get to for sound check, we walk into, I think it was Constitution Hall, and there's like an empty seated audience seating, empty though, except the Beach Boys are on stage with an 11-piece backup band, strings and brass. They were ridiculously good. And we were overwhelmed by it. We were like, we have to follow that. They had perfect everything. Anyway, Buffalo Springfield were sitting in the middle, and they turned around. On stage, Carl Wilson goes, "Hey, Strawberry Alarm Clock, come and sit down." And so we go down the aisle, and there's the Buffalo Springfield in one row. And so they said, "Come on." They waved us in, and I went in first, and I sat next to Neil Young. We introduced each other. Well, hi. And then I said, "All right, surf music." 18-year-old dumbass, and I go, "All right, surf music." Because to me, that's what they were before. And so anyway, Neil Young looks at me and he goes, "Prepare to have your mind blown." And I thought, okay, I shut up. I never am going to talk again. That's it. I'm not saying not ever a word again.
Which is hard to believe, might I add.
Yeah, it didn't last. But Daryl Dragon was the conductor, and he counted off "God Only Knows." That was the first thing we heard.
Wow.
And I swear, the hair, I looked at my arms, and the hair was literally up, and I had the chills kind of. I thought, oh, whoa. It was angelic, and never heard anything of the sort, live. I've heard their records, but this was beyond. It was like a private concert too.
That's crazy, man.
And it was so remarkable. And 18 years old, we're like freaked out. And then they go, "All right, Strawberry Alarm Clock, come down on the stage and let's get your sound check going." And we're like, yeah. It was like, oh no. They were so ultra kind. They took care of us. They took us under their wings. They were Mike Love. I was 18. He was 26 or 27.
Wow.
He was like dad. Not quite, but but he was like an older guy. He was already losing the front of his hair. And we end up getting on the stage with our instruments and everything. And they guided us to the microphones and told us each how far to stay back from them. They had each of us say, test our voices, and had each of us at the right distance from the microphones, set our amp sounds, and they got me at this great bass sound out of this Fender Dual Showman, and I was like, "Oh, this is the greatest." And they go, "Yeah, but you're not going to be loud. You're going to balance everything, and it's going to be da 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 da." And I think our sets were maybe a half an hour long, but they were good. We were really good, and because we were rehearsed, And so we had confidence in ourselves. It's just that it was, you're following that thing, that's like perfection. And we probably weren't perfect, but we were good because Ed King was like, he was a stickler for no mistakes. No mistakes, period. He would say it before every show. No mistakes. And we basically listened to Ed. So, but it was great. Anyway, that's the first day of the tour.
Okay, let's talk about the new album because that's what we're here for. So, Where's One is the first proper album released by the band since 1969. How different did these sessions feel in a modern studio compared to sort of what you had back in the 60s?
What we had back in the 60s was state of the art for then. We had an engineer named Paul Buff, and not to go back to the 60s again, but Paul Buff, we had an 8-track recorder that he turned into a 10-track. So he was a multi-track guy already, and he was Frank Zappa's best friend and had done a lot of stuff with Zappa. So we were in really good hands. The quality of our old records is really high compared to a lot of other bands that you listen to, and that's where it came from. Yeah, and the producer was Frank Slay, and he had done a bunch of people too. He Freddie Cannon and the Four Seasons and Sugarloaf, and so the new album we recorded it at a place called Rock Cellar Studios. It's a friend of ours, and he's got a beautiful studio, and we rehearsed there and we recorded there. And then Steve Bartek has a studio, like I said, and his studio is a converted garage, but it's full on state of the art also. And because he has to do all these film scores, and his thing is legit too.
Yeah.
And so it's not like a home studio like I'm sitting in here. And we were in good hands because Steve is a good producer. He produced a lot of the Boingo stuff, and he produces a lot of the scores for the movies that Danny Elfman does. And he's done every Danny Elfman movie and all the Tim Burton movies. His studio is great. And then the Rock Cellar studio is really great. And then Michael Stern is a really great engineer that has been working with us at Rock Cellar. His thing is called the Mix Lab. It's across the hallway from the recording studio. And so we mix in there. We all get in there together and everybody gives their opinion. And Steve kind of, like when I was doing the credits for the album to sending it to the record company, I had produced by Steve Bartek. He goes, no. He goes, put me and the Strawberry Alarm Clock. And I said, oh, okay. So it says produced by Steve Bartek and the Strawberry Alarm Clock, or they co-produced, like he gave production credit to Michael Stern too on several songs. And we do all have good input. Everybody comes up with great ideas. We do the same thing when we're recording. We're all in the same room. We were talking about this the other day, that we basically record live. The only time that it's tripped us up is when we had both Gene and Randy playing drums at the same time. Yeah, because it was like you couldn't hear the bass drums were not exact, together, and so they were there. But when you're dissecting it and mixing it, then you hear little flams, and you got to go, oh, you got to move this and move that, and that's where modern recording is different. Everything's digital. Although the board we use is analog, but it's all got a lot of digital input and it's Pro Tools and that kind of stuff too. So we adjust things, that's just the way it is these days. At least it's not AI.
Well, you can adjust things without having to do it over again.
Yeah, in the old days, you didn't even get to do it over again half the time. It would be like, time is money. That's it. It's close enough,
Next.
I remember Ed King crying about one guitar solo and the song "World's on Fire," and he goes, I don't want it to be on the record." And they were going, "That's it. Don't worry about it. It's going to be fine, you know.
Yeah.
There's a lot of material on this album, a whopping 13 songs, which covers a double vinyl release.
Yeah.
I guess you had nearly 50 years of catching up to do, so it was probably easy to come up with 13 songs.
No, it's true. There was 4 songs that were recorded in, I think it was like in 2011. So some of these things were in the can for a long time, and it was actually a really cool. It was closure to do these, to finish this record, because we had these songs on hold, and it was nice to actually finally get them done in a way that was that we could all sign off on.
We had enough songs not to do quite 4 sides to a double-sided to double album, but we had enough to do 3 sides. So we started, playing with the idea, where's one, which is a musician's term when we lose the first beat of a particular bar, that we would actually have the first side of the record to be blank.
And you've also thrown in a couple of covers on this album as well, haven't you?
Yes.
There's a brilliant... I love the Beatles cover. I played that on my radio show a week ago. I think that's... I hate cover versions generally, but I think that is a really great cover.
We did... So we did Day Tripper and...
Within You, Without You.
Yes, that's it. No, it was Day Tripper. It was Day Tripper because that's one of my favourite... I've been in a covers band for 10 years and I've played it the standard way for 10 years, and to hear somebody do something different with it was like, oh, thank God, that's so refreshing.
Yes.
Nice. Thank you.
You're right. That song really is sort of like, I wouldn't say it's mundane, but this is Day Tripper and this is how you do it, and we've all played that live that way, the Beatles version. So that was George's brainchild.
Well, you know what? I was at home first, and it was 1982, and I was playing with that lick. Not to learn it or anything, I already knew it, but I decided to see what it sounded like if every note had the equal value instead of it being syncopated. Everything was just da 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 da, and so I had to learn how to play it like that. It's easy to play the syncopated one because you hear it so much, you know where it's coming. But when you put all those notes together like that, you have to actually learn that to function. And the first version of it was in 11 because there's 11 notes. So in the lick, there's 11 notes. And so it came, I brought it to my band at the time, and it was actually with Bruce Gary from the Knack. He was the drummer. And 2 guys from my high school band from the Waterford Train, which was pre-Strawberry Alarm Clock. We started messing with it, and then I realized it's too hard to keep it going in 11, So then I decided to put 2 E's in the front so that it went da-da, and then it was in 12. So it was in 12/8. So that's where it is. And then it goes to 4/4. And then it does use 11 when we, like the beginning and the ending are in 11. So it's kind of developed itself over the years.
There's many sort of genres and crossovers of subgenres on the album while it still remains very coherent in its flow. Was that conscious? Did you really think long and hard about the structure of the album and the order of the songs, or did it just end up that way because that's the way it was?
Yeah, Steve put it out there, and then we all just kind of took a look at it and gave some opinions, and it worked out the way it is.
We were talking about this the other day with somebody, and about it being sort of a concept album, and it wasn't. But as it turns out, everything seems to have a relative thing to it, literally and figuratively. Like Howie's songs are definitely about his family and his mom, his kids, and so. Some of his song is about his girlfriend. Randy's songs are about his girlfriend and his wife, actually. And, so the songs are about family in a large part, so.
Yeah.
it just kind of turned out. I don't know. We didn't try to. It just ended up like that.
It did, yeah, and it's it came out nicely, the group of songs,
Is it easier to write songs now with life experience than it was when you were 18, or is it just that the subject has changed?
The subject matter has changed, but my songs are always silly. So that part never changed. So for me, I write the same way that I did, like when I wrote Paxton's Backstreet Carnival or Rainy Day Mushroom Pillow or Hummin' Happy, any of those songs from the first album, they're not much different from, Tahitian Gardens and Primordial Soup and the things that I write now, Monsters. So they're all kind of fun, I've always, and then Day Tripper was like for fun, is to have fun, and that's kind of my deal. And Mark, his thing is kind of keeping it danceable, and so is Randy's kind of. Their things have kind of a R&B feel to them, and the bass parts are fun for me to play like that. I like playing to other people's songs. Howie's got one of the most beautiful songs. It is the most beautiful song on the album,
Oh yeah.
and it's called "Since You Have Gone Away," and it's about Howie's mom was a cellist, and she came to him in a dream.
She passed away.
It's a poignant song, and in the studio, you'll like this. This is perfect example of what things were like in the studio. We heard Howie do the lead vocal, and he came back into the booth, and we're all sitting there with tears in our eyes. Guys that are normally totally goofy were completely touched.
Oh yeah.
That was so beautiful. And
Yeah.
the song, it's just something,
Yeah.
Howie designed the bass part for that one, and it's totally McCartney-esque. And so for me, it was a blast. I was all into the whole thing, and so the bass part is perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, George, thank you for making that happen. Some guys might no, I'm going to make my own part.
Yeah, no. I recognized what it was and how it led the song, what it meant to the song, and
Right.
so I really loved it.
It's interesting you led into that tune because having more life experience and being older, I think it's easier, or you have more material to draw from to write. When you're younger, you're kind of like you're trying to be clever, and you're trying, you know what I mean? It's a different come from, I think, as you have more life experience.
Yeah, that's true.
What would you each say was the most difficult track on the album from your point of view? Probably, Gene, you'd say the Day Tripper.
Day Tripper was for me, but luckily we have another drummer that was able to take care of that. So some of the songs I played on, and some of them Randy played on, and the ones that I played on were pretty simple and straight ahead. But I don't recall which one was the most difficult besides Day Tripper. Randy's song about his dad.
Quite like that. That was pretty much done with Steve, Randy, and George, and they brought that out of the archives, as it were, and had us all play and put a part on there. So that's probably the oldest song on that record, and that was hard to do. I gotta say, it's I think you've heard that one. It's talk about prog rock. Yeah, it's like a fusion piece. But you know what I have to say. This record, I was leaving Steve's Bartek's. We did a lot of our guitar overdubs and background vocals overdubs at his studio. And I remember leaving and saying, I've never had so much fun recording.
So let's talk a little bit about live shows. So you've played some live shows. You've explained that it was playing live that got you back into the studio after a while.
Right.
What are your live plans regarding promotion for the album? Are you going to play a tour, a mini tour, or a gig, or is that not really being thought about? Obviously, you've got this gig in February.
Our album's being released on August 7th. And on August 9th, we're playing in San Diego, California at a festival called Tiki Festival. and that's pretty much going to be our opening gig, so to speak, for the release of the album. It was supposed to be released in, what was it, January or February? And it kept being postponed because of this reason or another. But now the definite date is August 7th. And then 3 days later, we're in San Diego at Tiki Gardens.
Tiki Oasis.
Tiki Oasis? Okay.
So would you like to play more live? Is that sort of the long-term goal, is to play more shows and get this really out there on the live scene?
Well, I love playing live, and we have 2 drummers, and so sometimes that gets difficult with a small stage, especially at the place like the Whiskey A Go Go. It gets really difficult to set up both sets of drums, but at the same time, I love the 2 drummer setup. We do very well together. When Randy loses one, I come back and where's one?
As far as playing live, we have not just the age issue, but as we've got, like, for example, Steve is a very busy person with his orchestrating and working with Danny. Mark has a business that he has to keep running.
And so do I.
Yeah, and so does, exactly. Thank you, Gene. So do you. I mean, George and I are probably the only ones that can be flexible to go run off and do stuff. So we're kind of limited to how much we can play live and where. But we're definitely into doing it. And I think as far as promotion goes, it's doing what we're doing now. It's getting out there and doing interviews and so on. But yeah, hopefully we can do some more shows. I think maybe the album might generate a little excitement in that area.
Have you guys ever played in the UK?
No.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Because when I was listening back to your early stuff, thinking, wow, this is really, there's a Pink Floyd thing going on. You've got that sort of, as you said, the 60s invasion thing going on. And yeah. I was thinking you would have been so good in the UK in the late 60s. It would have been the perfect ground.
We actually had a tour booked. We had a crooked manager, but we were all kind of bummed out that we were being considered bubblegum. And so our manager, we think, had us framed in Peoria, Illinois, at a motel where police came to the door, and we didn't even know what they were doing there. And they came in and they reached under a desk and pulled out a bag of pot that was under the desk. We thought, what a weird thing. What is this? Anyway, we had to go to jail that night and spend the night in jail. And our manager had Melvin Belli, the famous Melvin Belli attorney, like for the Kennedys and whatnot, show up and bail us out. And from there, we had all these other things booked. We were going to go to France and Germany and England, and all of it got canceled. We had we were supposed to be on the Dick Cavett show, and it got canceled. All these things. So the rug was pulled out from under us, and that's basically what happened.
For people wishing to find out more about Strawberry Alarm Clock, check out the band's website, strawberryalarmclock.com. There is so much information on there and on Wikipedia about the history of the band, which will fill in all the gaps from all the little bits of the questions that have been answered on here, and it's fascinating. I could have gone through it for hours, I have to say. The upcoming album Where's One by Strawberry Alarm Clock is due out via Big Stir Records on August the 7th. Physical formats will be deluxe double LP vinyl, CD, and it will be on Bandcamp and all streaming platforms. But honestly, this is one I think people should buy because it's a really, really good album. So, George, Gene, and Howard, thank you so much for joining me. It's been a real pleasure to chat to you.
You're welcome.
Oh, it's been an honor. Thank you.
You're saying there's so much information about the band at the website. We could actually have another website on the faux facts about the Strawberry Alarm Clock.